A little bit of my backstory about me. Uh, I feel like I'm a black sheep of the group because I went to school for film. So went from filmmaking at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. And then after that, I ended up freelancing for about 9 years, doing commercials, feature films, short films, music videos, literally in different positions and different things. It's a little mixture of everything. And then I've been with Dining Services for going on 6 years now. And I know a lot of people think dining, first thing you think is all I do is play with food all day. That's probably actually still the lowest thing I do. I still do pretty much the same thing as you guys do with like events and construction, remodels. You know, gotta have things for posters and hiring, videos and photos, headshots, you know, things for billboards, just all the things. And then just for, you know, my interests, I like cars, wrestling. I heard it's fake, I still like it. There's woodworking. Woodworking, I'm not an expert, but I enjoy doing it. And I love, you know, card games, whether it's like Texas Hold'em or Cards Against Humanity or anything. So, and then these are a couple of freelance things I worked on. This is actually a feature film we worked on, which was kind of fun. That's that key gaffer, and he's rigging this thing up above a bathtub that is literally set to a bunch of dimmer switches. There's like 3 or 4 of us just going crazy with dimmer switches for a special effects shot. So that was kind of fun. That's called Machinery of Dreams. And I think I recently saw it's on Freevee or something like that. It's on one of the free things. You can watch that one. And this was a short film that was fun to do out in Roanoke. And we shot her going into one of those, you know, tubes to like scan her and everything. So to get an inside shot, we set up all this, and I was the one lighting it all. So that was a fun one to do there. And if anybody ever watched Supernatural, that's Ruth from Supernatural that played on that show. So it was kind of cool. So we do have a full marketing team at Dining Services. We have assistant director. We have me as the photo video, our senior graphic designer, social, who does help with graphics at times. We have a writer, and we just hired a second full-time graphic designer. So the team is building along with dining itself. All right, so yeah, so here we go. I'm not sure where everybody is in their lighting experience, trying to do something with artificial light instead of just always using daylight or the sun. So just starting off with some 3-point lighting. So you got your key light, which is your main light that you want to light your subject with. Then you have your fill light, which is just your shadow side of the face, because you kind of want it not to, you don't normally want it to wrap around fully for a complete flat look. You want kind of coming at an angle 45 degrees down, just kind of coming across the face for the key light. And then literally the fill side is up to you, I think, because depending on your story, what you're trying to capture, it can be a lot brighter or it can be a lot darker, and just how much contrast you really want coming across the face. You know, especially with sometimes when you have somebody that's maybe a little bit older, has a little bit more wrinkles, you want to get that flatter look, so your fill side's going to be a little brighter than maybe for someone else. But then again, if you're going for like a really dramatic story, you might bring it down and show some wrinkles. Depends on your subject and the story you're telling, and if they're even willing to let you give them the wrinkles on the face. And then you have your backlight, and that's, you know, usually helps separate your subject from the background. And I know a lot of people look at backlight and probably only think like the edge lighting on somebody, but sometimes you can take, you know, watch a movie, TV shows, commercials, anything. Sometimes it's not just edge lighting, it's actually making the background a little brighter. And so it's not always the edge light, it's just kind of playing with a backlight and seeing how you can get a separation from your subject. And so here's a couple of shots of some videos I've done. Kind of showing like, one thing to kind of go through is like I guess your base would be Rembrandt lighting. So you're just kind of wanting to come across the face, get a little triangle on the cheek, catch a little bit of the eye, and that's kind of your base, your standard that most people try to get for interview lighting. So you can see here I got one, we're doing hiring video, and so this is just a lot of B-roll shots and with a voiceover, and got her working out in a gym. And we just kind of have that little bit of a triangle, got a little bit on her eye there. Same here, kind of got the light coming across, got a little bit going on here, in here. But then of course here I did come over more, and I gave it a little bit more of a beauty light, and still got some contrast in there, but it's not the full dramatic lighting. So you can come over more if you want. Once again, depends on your story, your subject, what you want to do, but Rembrandt's sort of like the base to start with. And just also, a lot of things I'll be talking about are probably like base, but rules are meant to be broken. So I'm just kind of giving people base because I don't know where everybody's at. So the other thing is, oh great, I know how to do that, but what about all the different lighting scenarios and locations that I'm going to get with this? So, I mean, we all know this room, right? Everybody has this room. That's their favorite. This is everybody's favorite room. And then sometimes we get this. Sometimes we have classrooms with windows, without windows. And then, of course, like some people have to do, videos for presidents and people that have big offices. So that brings up a lot of different, how am I going to match this light? How am I going to light this? How are we going to make it look good? Here's a scenario where I had to do a B-roll shot with that type of office. There's no windows, there's no nothing. It's honestly, this room is probably even smaller than this one. And so I was having a student employee, it's supposed to be for hiring for students. So we have a student talking to somebody in an office, and I was like, how am I going to light this? It's that ugly fluorescent lighting. How am I going to light this? So what I did is I actually just turned off the fluorescence. I was like, we're not using that at all. And I took another light, and it's over here, and that light is pointed right up to the ceiling. So that way it's just bouncing down a nice clean light, not having any fluorescence. And then with it being so tight and having the shelf here with storage, I got a panel light up here kind of coming down on her too. So now it's helping me give a little bit of a key light over here because she's also dancing around back and forth, looking at him, looking at the computer. And that's kind of how I set that up. I think I had another light just over here that was just barely fitting in a corner, but I can't remember if I actually was using that one or not. But yeah, that's how I tried to make this beautiful thing look like this. And then here we got another one. We did some interviews. We had our director retiring, and so we wanted to do a nice retirement video for them. And being in dining, this was during, while we're still operating. So I'm like, I'm not going to get any nice, quiet, beautiful shots in dining right now. So I found another location on campus and saw these windows. And I'm like, oh, I love this. Because another great thing about windows is not just, I'm going to use the windows to light the person, but I'm going to use the windows as a motivation for what I am lighting. So you think, because this window is going, subconsciously you think that's just going, and that's what's lighting his face. And you think that's what's lighting him in the back. But I actually have a key light here and I have a backlight there, but those windows are helping making it feel like a motivation versus like, where's this light? We all know that there's a fluorescent, but still it's just not quite the same as when you have something like that has motivation. So I'd say if you have like classrooms, that have windows, this would be nice to like try to use the windows in your shot as just even motivation, whether it's for the back of them, for a key, but showing those lights or showing the windows just helps your lighting look so much better and more natural almost when you're using that stuff. And then I'd even say like if you go back to and you get one of these guys, I think this could be really nice if you can even do like a wide shot so you can really show the texture of those lights up there, maybe start with that and then come in closer as the interview's going. And when you do that too, you can probably put like a little key light, and that's probably all you need is one light. You probably don't need to do a whole bunch of else. But if you want to go a little extra, I might put something over their head, and that would just block this light a little bit more, and it'd just give them a little bit more contrast in the space. It could be a diffusion, it could be a black flag, it could be a net. But if you feel like you have that space and ability, you can put that over top of them and then have a key light on them and help separate them a little bit, make it look a little nicer. So I got some new toys, so I went the extra mile on this one. So here I'm doing more of a book lighting. So I have my light going straight into a V flat, bouncing back into a diffusion, and then that's my key. For feel, most of the time I end up just using a bounce board of some sort, whether it's a poster board, foam core, anything like that that will just reflect back, 5-1 reflector. You can see my backlight is a tube light. I think tube lights work great because they're so easy to like just lift up. They're lightweight, can hide them nice too. So I like using tube lights as a backlight. Yeah, just make sure you have sandbags though if you have an arm. Otherwise that thing's gonna fall. But yeah, so that pretty much is my setup there. And then once they get in the seat, just kind of close it in a little bit. You know, you want your key light to be as close as you can get, so it's softer the closer it is, and the bigger that it is. So yeah, so that's, like I said, you don't necessarily have to go this far with it. You can have the soft box pointed at them, but I got some new toys, so I was going the extra mile. And just pointing out, I am a one-man band and a little crazy. So I do this sometimes by myself. Sometimes I have one extra person if the writer shows or we have an intern that's free, but there's still a lot of times it's just me. So this next video is if you really do want to go crazy. I did this, and it was me and one intern that came to help me for a bit, so hopefully you enjoyed this video.
Liquid of toad. Oh, hello, and welcome deep inside the laboratory of Owen's Food Court. We're stirring up wickedly delightful concoctions for this Halloween. Some of our experiments have not gone as expected, but the halls have eyes, which should make our observations easier. But the others have gone much more smoothly. Some formulas we dare not mix without your help. It could get messy. We need a few more subjects as we test our frequencies. Costumes not required, but always tasteful. Hope to see you there.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, that's literally the funnest video I get to make all year. So yes, that's really fun. Obviously, there's also so many obstacles that came along with that, just like we all have. And I'll show you, got a quick little behind the scenes video that I took and put together of all the things we were running around doing with that. So that's Jenna. There's Jenna. She was helping me. She's our intern there. And you can see how many lights I got. Just gear and lights and everything to get this thing going. Yeah, I got an aperture, just one of the bulb lights and a can light there.
How long did it take you to set up?
It's kind of a blur. I don't know how to This is all after hours too, and it was right before we opened back up. Because I was like, oh, before y'all get started on opening the dining back up, I gotta get this video for Halloween. Let's, you know, so. Yeah, and then of course we were supposed to have dry ice, but we couldn't find any, so thankfully I brought a fog machine. You can see I'm trying to turn it and hit the fog machine. Using gels on that light, and then we stuffed all kinds of lights, whatever I had, tube lights, bulb lights, all over that. Yeah. And you can see I really couldn't get my light close to my subject, so I just kind of put a diffusion right there where it's hidden and just kind of let it come through. A little block. Oops. Yeah. So after seeing like that crazy mess of everything that I was working on for Halls Have Eyes, this shot is literally only one light. So this one is all practical lights. So everything else outside of my one light is practicals. That's, of course, my light reflecting. So yeah, I just have a dome light kind of hanging down because with LEDs, you have that very powerful light just kind of beaming through, and I didn't have like a dish or something for it to bounce around. So instead I just got a dome, so it's pointed down for the harsh light, and then the dome's kind of bringing it out a little softer. And then so now that's coming across and hitting him a little bit down there. And this is for like another Christmas music video I was working on. But just to show you, you don't have to set up all that craziness to get a nice shot. You can use the practicals and everything that's behind you to really bring it out, and then just put one key light on them. There you go. And this is one from a YouTube show I tried to get going. We'll see if it continues. So this one is like my family ride show, and just people's, why do they have a car? Why do they care about their car? Why won't they give it up? Or why did they purchase it? All of those type of things. Why is it a family member to them? And so another thing to think about that a lot of people forget, sometimes people are always like, oh, it's video. I should be moving my camera around. Well, in this, I didn't want to do handheld. I didn't have a slider with me. So for that, instead of moving my camera, I moved my lights. So that's another thing to think about. Is like sometimes maybe you don't have to move the camera. Maybe you can move the lights depending on what you're doing, especially for like B-roll stuff, depending on what kind of B-roll you need. And I can show you. I apologize, this is going to be me, and I'm a horrible person on camera, as you can tell right now. But we'll show this just because it has a lot of B-roll clips in it. Hi everyone, my name is Darren Van Dyke. I'm the creator of Family Rides. So I wanted to let you know this year we're planning on putting out more content, and we are still looking for people that have stories to tell about their vehicles. Why are they family? Please keep a lookout for new episodes, and we'll have a link below for some of the ones we've already done. Look forward to seeing you at the car shows. But yeah, you can see like in these shots, whoop, go back. And then like these shots here, kind of just, I lit it up, and then I just took literally that same aperture light and just a Home Depot can light, and it's just twisty-wristy. That's all it was. And we are still looking. And the zoom is a digital. I just did that in editing to give it a little extra. So you can still do a lot, even with you just having a still camera. If you just think about moving a light and be like, oh, I can still probably digitally punch in, digitally punch out. Sometimes really getting it in camera does look a lot better, but still, even in editing, it can still look nice just to do a punch in, punch out a little bit, just like a little zoom. All right, clicky. And then everybody's favorite thing, gear. Just some examples of things for gear there. So yeah, you get your aperture, nan light, anything like that. They're usually for your keys, soft boxes. Barn doors, I feel like, is something that I don't hear people talk about as much anymore, or Fresnel lenses. Those are great tools, especially for video. As I'll show in here, I'm gonna talk straight, I promise. When we get over to the lab here in a minute, barn doors can be nice because in the background you could have like a nice slice happening of light that looks like it's a motivation. Here's a window. You get a light that kind of slice close to where that window is. It looks like the sun is slicing through there, even if it's not. It's another thing where you can have some motivation lighting or just add a little character in the background with something. Because even, see here, like this shot here. You got a nice slice happening right here. This is natural. This is because we have like a skylight and whatnot. But if I didn't, you could add that with barn doors. And it just helps give a nice little texture in here instead of just this gray, right? It gives a little bit to that wall. So you could do that with barn doors too. And of course, your Fresnel lens also helps break up your light. So it's just not just a harsh beam. It helps break it up a little bit. You got your stands, and C-stands are nice. If you don't want to be hauling around these heavy things, like me, you're one-man banding a lot. There are also like Manfrotto's combis, and they have where it kind of slides into the tube, and then you can pull it out, and then you can have an arm on it. Those are a lot lighter, and can be used very similar to those. And then Cardellini clamps are nice to use as well if you're trying to hide something or rig something. Those are nice to be able to hang stuff and hide them. Apple boxes, especially if you get one like this where it has a little pin, so you can put like a little spigot in there. Now you can have a light low to the ground and it can sit on something. So those are really nice. Once again, you can get any kind of bounce. 5-1 reflectors are great. I use mine all the time. A bunch of other sandbags are always a key too if you're going to have anything arching out. Always have a sandbag. And there's some more behind the scenes. So you can see even here, I'm taking a nan light and I made it a practical, you know, in that shot where he's coming through and it's a breaking bow because it fits, right? It looks like it's a practical. You think that that would be there because it looks like a fluorescent light, and it's just rigged up right there at the dish machine for this video. For this shot, once again, just that bulb, can light, and that was that under light when she's like looking down into the thing. And then my camera and the fog machine and everything else I can throw into that. Of course, we have that one, and then this one is a more recent thing we're doing with some food, doing some food videos. But trying to get into pieces of a kitchen, you know, it's like, how am I supposed to put a light there? How can I put this here? How can I make it look pretty and nice? So I started to I got grill grates. I got a light underneath here that's going to give a fire effect on it. This light here is just giving a little more edge because it wasn't quite wrapping around. So this one gives a little more edge of the firelight, a little bit more of a key, and then this is bouncing up just to have an overall sort of feel light that's just nice. That's a lot of setup for whatever I was shooting that day, but it looks better than it was trying to fit myself somewhere in a grill that has a wall and then they're in service and then, like, you know, it just works out better. And then after seeing all the dramatic stuff, you can still make pretty stuff with light and bright and happy still. You know, there's still a lot of nice contrast happening here. You know, you can see that Rembrandt kind of happening again. You know, but everything's kind of bright and white and happy. Like, you can still make a lot of good video with that too. It doesn't want it to be super dramatic. And then there's me as Beetlejuice. So here's recommendations that I have for anybody who's like, I want to dig more into this. I want to find some more things. You got Meet the Gaffers, a YouTube series. It's a great one. DSLR Shooter is a little bit more of just finding different toys, different gear. He like will, you know, budget to a little bit more than budget, but then also like having that sort of Lego or Connects thing where he's like, well, if you get this and this and this and this and this, you can build this, and like he does a lot of that stuff. So it's kind of fun. Joe McNally, who's here, has an Adorama series. It's not video, but just the way he lights things in this series, it's like a video. So that's definitely something still, just getting your head wrapped around some things. That's a really good one. Film Academy, I think they changed their name recently. That's Shane Hurlbut from Hollywood DP. Actually, I've taken some of his classes in the past, and that's another awesome resource to find to get some stuff. Gaffer and Gear, similar to Meet the Gaffer, just a different person. Cinematography style DVD is a great DVD to watch as well. It's kind of a bunch of different DPs talking about their way of approaching light and all that. I want to say, if I remember right, Vision of Light, is that the other one? I think this is the one, yeah. Vision of Light, I think this is the one where they took 2 DPs, gave them the same script, and then said, light it. And just showing that, you know, because we all get captured, oh, is this perfect? Oh, is this, is that? And it showed that you could have 2 high up DPs in Hollywood lighting the exact same scene they saw in the script totally differently, totally different looks. So that's like great to sort of help get yourself out of your head sometimes when you're just like, oh, I can't find this, I can't get out. So that's a really good one. And then some books as well, Theory and Painting with Light, are really good books to get. And the DVDs, I was having a hard time finding, but I found if there's a website called Film Tools. It's also a great place just to find gear as well, but that's where these DVDs were living. And then there's my contact if anybody ever wants to reach out or ask questions or anything. Feel free. So yeah, so I think it's about time that we probably go over. I can show you a little setup we did over there, and then we'll ask questions. Anybody has questions after that, just, you know, feel free. So we got our key light already set up here. This is a Westcott 120B. Westcott was, thankfully they had one light because I didn't have one. So they let me borrow this. I didn't even know Westcott was doing video lights, but apparently they're starting a video lights. So they said they had a 120B. I think they got a 60, and they're going to be coming out with a 300 sometime in the future. So if you like Westcott, you can look at them as well for these lights. And this one is a bicolor. So, like when I first came into this room, the first thing I did is I just took a look to see what the lighting was like in here. It's like, okay, what am I gonna have to either match, or do I even want the lights on? Like I told you, in that one, such a tight space, I just turned the lights off. So in here, just looking around, that's why I was like, bicolor would be great, because now I can try to match what's in here. So I can try to use these lights instead of just killing them. Could you go over there and knock one of them off? One says dim. I want the dim on. And the other one. I think that's it, yeah. So you can see now we changed it. Thankfully they had a switch. Not everybody has that. But we got a switch. Now we get a little bit more contrast happening in here. So you can see how it's kind of wrapping around his face. We're trying to get that look right there of the Rembrandt on him, give a little more dramatic look. If I wanted to, I could take a, if I wanted to keep everything a little bit more dramatic, I could take this 5-in-1. We could probably set something here, and then now we're just giving that little extra feel in his face. You also got bulbs here that, if I wanted to, I could take these. If we wanted to go real fun and dramatic, we could like put them behind here. They could be having things shaking up, and that maybe they didn't have color dye that day, but now you got RGB lights, so now each thing can be a different color. Or you can complement them, or however you want to do. You can play with a lot of lights behind them. And you can also do it with the little credit card ones too, So those could be really fun to play with. And then I got this guy here as a backlight. So kind of get him, because my camera angle is going to be this way, so I see this window for motivation. And then I would just turn this on, and it should be out of the light. But now I'm giving him a little bit of a backlight, a little line on the jaw, a little bit of the hair. I even tried it up here. As you can see, I had it rigged up to see if I could get something up top coming down, so then I don't have this stand here and have to work around this stand. Now that light's completely out of my shot, but it still could give me that look. And then, watch out guys, over here. Here we got another Nan light. This was thanks to Roberts for having this one. So this one, we got the barn doors, we got a Fresnel lens in it. So now we can also make it a tighter shot, or tighter light, or wider light. And then, watch your eyeballs there. Click. So now we can get like a nice little strip of light right here if we want to. Maybe clean this up, make it look a little bit better. But you can get a nice strip of light. So now we got the window that's motivating this nice strip of light coming through behind our subject. So it's also helping create a little bit more atmosphere. So it's not just about lighting the subject sometimes. Sometimes it's like, how can I light the background to make it a little bit more appealing if there's not already some practicals? Like that one shot I told you, everything was a practical and only had a key light. So that depends on your locations. But yeah, so I think that's pretty much all we have set up at this moment. Anybody have any questions of things, or?
What is your mindset going into this? Like, when you first come into a room, what are you looking for first?
So as far as lighting, like the first thing I do is I just look to see what my lighting is in that situation. Because dining centers sometimes have prettier lighting. They have a neon light here. They have maybe some lights on the wall that are tungsten, and just seeing what colors the lights are, or whether it's like this is not blocked at all and it's just one huge window, right? And then like the machine that's right there, that has a light in it. I might turn that light on in that machine just so it now has more character, has light, has something coming out of it. Or maybe I'll see if I can rig one in there, put some color in there with a tube light or something. So I'll just start looking at like what the lighting is there, and then what could I play with as far as like bringing something in to give it more character. So that's kind of what I do with that. And then of course you always, want to look what your frames are, what's my background, what's the, prettiest background I can find in this space, and so that type of things like that.
Being a one-man band, how much
Yeah.
are you allowing yourself to set up your production?
So for me, I always show up an hour ahead of time and start setting up. So thankfully, being only dining as well, I know all my locations at this point, being being there for almost 6 years. So yeah, usually I put myself 1 hour, and I'll come in and start setting up, and then they come in after that, and then hopefully I've finished. If not, maybe a couple tweaks here and there, and then get the ball rolling. But I usually give myself about an hour to get everything set up. But that's also why with Halls Have Eyes I had an assistant, because I didn't have an hour for that one.
What's one piece of equipment you really want that you don't got?
I really want that I don't got.
And why?
I think one I would love to have right now is probably like an 8x8 frame. Yeah, so then I could put diffusion on that. I could go outside, put somebody standing right there, take the stands with some sandbags, put the diffusion over them, and then boom, it just looks nice. It's pretty, and I know it covers them entirely, because I have like a 50-foot, 5-in-1, but even that, like, sometimes it's like, oh, no, the sun's peeking here, the sun's peeking there, so like getting that bigger one that just put it over top of them and just go outside and film them. You don't have to worry about looking for a tree. Now you're just looking at what my background is and then set that up. So.
Side, what's a piece of equipment that you find, if you had just like the most versatile, if you were kind of like limited in what you could have?
Yeah. Honestly, I'd probably go with tube lights. I think they're like, usually you can find those pretty cheap. And if you got 4 of those in a row, you could set it up to that be your key. So now you have, it could be a key light, it can also be a backlight, it can do a lot of different things with tube lights. I think they're pretty versatile. So I would definitely say tube lights. Yeah.
So do you always light your B-roll?
So in dining, yeah, I do always light my B-roll, because dining is such a dark space a lot of times. Even when they think, oh, it's nicely lit, it's like, nah, it's not really. So yeah, I pretty much light just about everything we do.
B-roll shoot would be how many minutes, or like coming in here? You put a lot of time into it.
Yeah. I mean, once again, it depends on the shoot and everything. If somebody tells me, oh, we want this to be only like a minute or 30 seconds, or we want this, so a lot of times that depends on like how long I'll take on B-roll. And some things, that's all it is. It's a voiceover, no B-roll, or no interview, and it's all B-roll. And so thankfully, once again, with that, recently got some new toys, which help out a lot. I got C-stands, but I also got the wheels for them underneath. So I had to do a student hiring video, and I literally was just taking one big key light, and I was using it and just throwing it around. And then I had what I call a meat stand, which is just, I had my graphic designer come in. I was like, can you just hold this light right here? It's like, it'll take me less time if you just hold that than me trying to go over there and set up a stand for it. So the key light was on wheels, and then she just kind of had a tube light, once again, tube lights. And she was just using that, and that was kind of my edge light for everything. So just kind of running around doing that with 2 lights, and we got a bunch of B-roll. Yeah.
Speaking of C-stands with like wheels on them, are you doing like a lot of like shots with a lot of movement, say like subject like walking towards camera or anything like that, and like kind of what are your tips for that? Because I think that's a lot of what we do is there's a lot of movements, a lot of like students walking down the hallway, trying to make sure that lighting stays even. We don't have like wheels on our C-stands or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's another one where even if you have an assistant, as long as they can either hold a bounce board or hold a light itself and just hold that stand and just walk with it backwards with you, if you're, because most of the time I'm walking backwards with it and hoping we don't trip. So, but yeah, just have another assistant there if you can, and just doing that. Or if, once again, if you like, I don't have any lights at all, if you can find a nice spot with some windows, because it's like, I even went looking the other day when we were sort of scouting the spaces. They have some dining down there, and there's a long window path right there. So I was like, you just have them kind of rolling down that window path, let that like hot sun kind of cross their chest a little bit. And then that can also, you might not need anything for that. You can just walk, or maybe once again, just a little bit of a bounce, and then just walking with that. Don't even need a light.
With that, I guess so with this setup, I know you're kind of thinking the camera would be more like over here aiming out.
Yeah.
Not really getting this like reflection on the cabinets behind you right now.
Yeah.
But that is probably one of the biggest challenges we have when we're doing lighting setups. It's no matter where you look, you're like, oh, and the light isn't a reflection there. So,
Yeah.
I don't know, just do you have any like general advice for combating that?
Yeah, I mean, that's just trying to fight the angles and trying to figure out what you can do, yeah. Or maybe just finding a different spot that doesn't have all that reflection in it. But, and then also sometimes the further back you are, depending on how you're set up, the further back you are, the less it's going to get noticed. And then even in my shot for that Christmas video, I told you right there's my, but if I didn't point it out to you, would you really have noticed or cared? Like sometimes it's like, you know what, if I break it up a little bit and it doesn't look like one big circle and it's kind of broken up, it could have been a street light. That could have been what your thought was. So, you know, you're just sort of playing with that too and thinking like psychology in it a little bit. Like, would somebody notice or could that be something else? Could it look practical, you know? So it's kind of working with the psychology of that too a little bit.
What camera do you use?
So I have Canons. I'm a Canon guy. So at work I have a C200 that I use for most of the interviews. But as you saw, I also use it for like Halls Have Eyes and stuff. I think it really has the best look from what I have right now. And then photography, I have a 5D Mark IV, which I'm hoping to upgrade soon. but the 5D still does great. Yeah. So those are the two cameras I use the most at work.
Do you ever run into it where you don't have access to power?
Yes. Yeah, so that's another great thing. Once again, tube lights, batteries inside. So you don't have to worry about extra batteries. You don't have to worry about plugging it in. You just make sure they're charged before you go. But that's another great thing about tube lights. And also, you know, if you get lights like this one right here, the 120B, those are nice because you only have to get one battery. And you can put it on there and it can still be moved around. And that's pretty easy. Usually once you start getting the 300s and higher, you need multiple batteries. It becomes a whole thing. But just having that, you know, you can probably put a battery right on that and then you're good. You know, and then that could be your light. You don't have to worry about a plug. Just make sure you have enough batteries for your shoot so that, you know, it's not like, oh, it's dead and I didn't bring the plug, you know. So just make sure you have enough batteries. I always go by the at least 3 batteries, no less than 3, so that way you have a charging cycle. And then depending on how the batteries are, maybe get a 4th one because charging cycle's a little while longer. But yeah, so yeah, I definitely, you know, 120 is probably, and I've used 120 for interviews all the time. You don't necessarily need to get a 1200 or something. Like, it might be fun, but you don't necessarily need to get 1200. Anybody else?
You kind of make the shift between the videos that are just kind of not standard lit, but, you know, bright and pretty and everything, versus to the more stylized where you're kind of pumping in RGB and stuff like that. Where do you make the decision to make that switch? Project driven or?
Yeah, most of them are pretty much project driven. So it's like, you know, Halls Have Eyes, it just leans, that's Halloween. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I can play with colors, I can play with dark, I can play with all that. A hiring video, those are a little bit more brighter, you know, shots. I can still play with some cinematic, you know, obviously, but they're definitely gonna be brighter ones. So it really just depends on the subject of the project and what we're doing with it. You know, thankfully being in dining, you know, I get to play with events. So that's where like the Halls Have Eyes, Chili Challenge, a lot of these other ones I do videos for, like I can play with those and get more dramatic in those. But of course for the college itself, it's usually light and bright and pretty and, you know, not a lot of playing with gels. But thankfully we have events, so usually that's what gets my gels and stuff when we do the events.
And did you have to kind of make those arguments to do those, or were they kind of like, hey, it's creative, have a little fun with it?
So yeah, so thankfully I have some creative freedom in dining, so I'm very happy for that and fortunate because I know a lot of people don't get creative freedom. They're just like, just show up, do that, and that's all, you know, don't play around or anything. So thankfully they trust me enough that I come up with a lot of these ideas. And I'm just like, this is what I'm going to do, and they're just like, okay, and then it just kind of goes like that. And so I'm very thankful in that way that I have a place that allows me to be very creative and sort of come up with those things. Even though, like I said, I drive myself crazy as a one-man band doing that stuff, but it's hard for me not to. I want to have that creative. Anything else?
Do you have a kind of pre-production process for planning when either like lighting-wise or kind of the story that you're going to be telling? Because you said like I'm also one-man band, and setting up all that stuff in an hour and being ready is like really efficient, especially with like some of the complex setup. So what's your like? Do you have a little bit of a process before where you're kind of thinking through how you're going to set up, what you're going to focus on, what your like I guess, story, like the story
Yeah.
will be, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, usually going into a project, especially like one that's more complicated, a little bit like Halls Have Eyes, and it's not just an interview. I'll start to like bullet point it for myself. I used to try to do storyboards, but I was like, yeah, it just takes so much time to try to do a storyboard. So I just bullet point like the shots that I want to make sure I capture and make sure I have that list with me, make sure I capture everything in that. And then also I will go and find where the location is and look before. Like I said, yesterday we came in trying to work around this because there's also a photo story coming in here sorting too. So it's like, okay, you go there, I'll go here, you do this. So trying to figure it out. But coming in and like really seeing the space before you film, before the day of filming, and figuring it out, because like that's another thing with with halls. I keep going back to halls, but it's because it's the biggest setup. But with that one, like I really started thinking, okay, I could put a light here, I could put a light there, I can do this, I can do that. That's where I was like, man, I wish I had a Cardellini to put something over there, but I didn't have them at that time, And so I kind of started mapping in my head how the lighting was going to go, and then I started planning, okay, how am I going to organize my shoot? So, I had like all these other people coming in being different characters. So in that, I was like, okay, so we're going to knock this first out, and this first out, and this first out, and then like where the mad scientist is talking, that's just me and her. Everybody's gone at that point. I've already gotten everybody else in and out with all their parts, and now I know the majority of it is really just going to be her talking, and so like everything was before that, and then they leave, and it's just me and her, and then we just finish it out. So yeah, a lot of thinking about all the little things.